El Cóndor Pasa, the flight of freedom from the Andes to the world. Some melodies are popular, others become immortal. More than a century after it first echoed through a theater in Lima, Peru, El Cóndor Pasa continues to soar across generations, cultures, and continents. Its haunting notes have been performed by orchestras, folk ensembles, opera singers, and rock musicians. It has been translated into dozens of languages and reimagined in countless ways. To many Peruvians, it is affectionately known as the nation's second national anthem. Yet behind the melody lies a remarkable story, one that begins not in concert halls, but in the rugged Andes Mountains among indigenous communities, political struggles, and dreams of freedom. Like the great Andean Condor itself, the song has traveled farther than anyone could have imagined. The bird above the mountains. To understand El Cóndor Pasa, one must first understand the condor. The Andean condor is among the largest flying birds in the world. With wings stretching nearly 10 feet, it glides effortlessly above the highest peaks of South America. For centuries, indigenous peoples of the Andes have viewed the condor as a sacred creature, a messenger between heaven and earth. In Quechua, the language of the Incas, the bird is called kuntur. It was more than an animal. It was a spiritual presence. The condor inhabited the realm closest to the sky, connecting humanity to the world of the gods. To many Andean communities, it represented strength, wisdom, freedom, and continuity with the ancestors. Long before it became a song title, the condor was already a symbol of liberation. A revolution hidden inside a musical play. The story of El Cóndor Pasa begins in 1913, when Peruvian composer Daniel Alomía Robles wrote a zarzuela, a Spanish-style musical play bearing that name. Today, many people know only the melody. Few know the dramatic story behind it. The play was set in the mining regions of Peru, where indigenous workers endured exploitation under foreign-owned mining companies. The principal villain was a ruthless mining boss known as Mr. King, a fictionalized representation of the foreign industrial interests that controlled much of the region's wealth. The miners suffer abuse, poverty, and humiliation. Eventually, tensions explode. An indigenous miner named Higinio kills the cruel manager. When another oppressive supervisor attempts to replace him and continue the same system of exploitation, something extraordinary occurs. A giant condor appears overhead. Its shadow sweeps across the valley. To outsiders, it is merely a bird. To the miners, it is something far greater. The condor is understood as the living spirit of their ancestors, a sign that the old powers are weakening, and that indigenous dignity and sovereignty will someday return. The moment serves as the emotional climax of the play. The condor is not merely a symbol of hope, it is a prophecy of freedom. That powerful image explains why the melody became deeply rooted in Peruvian cultural memory. The song was never simply about a bird. It was about resistance, justice, and the enduring spirit of a people who refused to disappear. The man who collected a nation's music. The success of El Cóndor Pasa owes much to the extraordinary life of its composer. Daniel Alomía Robles was far more than a musician. He was one of South America's earliest ethnomusicologists. Beginning in the late 19th century, Robles traveled throughout Peru's mountains and valleys collecting indigenous melodies. He journeyed into remote villages, listened to local musicians, and documented songs that had been passed down orally for generations. In an age before portable recording equipment became common, this was painstaking work. Robles reportedly gathered nearly 1,000 traditional melodies during his travels. Many might have disappeared forever without his efforts. His goal was not merely to preserve music, but to preserve memory itself. When he composed El Cóndor Pasa, he drew heavily from these musical traditions, transforming indigenous sounds into a theatrical work that urban audiences could understand, while retaining the emotional character of the Andes. Why the melody sounds so ancient. One reason El Cóndor Pasa remains unforgettable is that it sounds unlike most Western popular music. At the heart of the melody lies the pentatonic scale, a 5-note musical system. found in many ancient cultures and deeply associated with traditional Andean music. The pentatonic scale creates a distinctive emotional atmosphere. Listeners often describe it as wistful, haunting, lonely, or nostalgic. It carries a sense of distance, as though the music is reaching across mountains, centuries, and memories. The melody feels ancient because in many ways it is. Yet there is another fascinating irony. When people hear El Cóndor Pasa today, they often imagine panpipes, indigenous flutes, and charangos. But those instruments were not what originally made the song famous. Robles composed the piece for a Western theatrical orchestra as part of his zarzuela. The sound most listeners associate with El Cóndor Pasa emerged decades later. That transformation would change the song forever. The Paris encounter that changed everything. In 1965, a young American songwriter named Paul Simon was performing in Paris. One evening, he heard a South American folk ensemble called Los Incas. Their performance captivated him. The group had taken Robles's melody and reimagined it using traditional Andean instruments such as panpipes and flutes. The arrangement sounded ancient, mysterious, and utterly unlike anything on American radio. Simon was enchanted. Years later, he would remember the experience as one of the most striking musical discoveries of his life. The arrangement he heard had been crafted largely by Jorge Milchberg, the musical director of Los Incas. Milchberg did more than simply perform Robles's composition. He reshaped it. He introduced rhythmic changes and emphasized a lively Huayno-inspired dance section in the latter part of the piece, creating the version that Simon ultimately fell in love with. Without realizing it, Simon had encountered a song that was already the product of multiple creative generations. 3 creators, 1 legend. When Simon decided to record the melody with Art Garfunkel, he wrote entirely New English lyrics. The result became El Cóndor Pasa If I Could, one of the most memorable tracks on the landmark 1970 album Bridge Over Troubled Water. The lyrics differed dramatically from the original Peruvian story. Instead of miners and revolution, Simon explored personal freedom. I'd rather be a sparrow than a snail. I'd rather be a hammer than a nail. The imagery was simple but profound. The song expressed a longing to escape limitations, to choose movement over stagnation, action over passivity, and nature over confinement. Millions of listeners connected with that message. Yet the worldwide success of the recording eventually raised an important question. Who actually owned the song? The answer was more complicated than many people realized. The melody belonged to Daniel Alomía Robles. The famous arrangement belonged largely to Jorge Milchberg. The English lyrics belonged to Paul Simon. 3 creative contributions had become intertwined. When Robles' son, filmmaker Armando Robles Godoy, discovered that the original composition had not been properly credited, he filed a copyright action. The dispute was eventually resolved amicably. Neither side viewed the matter as an act of bad faith. Simon had been told that the melody was a traditional folk tune and believed he had received accurate information. The lawsuit ultimately clarified an important point. Even music that sounds ancient and traditional can have a specific creator. The heart of the melody belonged to Daniel Alomía Robles, the song that almost reached the stars. For many years, a popular story circulated claiming that El Cóndor Pasa was included on NASA's Voyager Golden Record. The truth is slightly different, and perhaps even more beautiful. The famous melody itself was not selected. Instead, the Voyager spacecraft carried a traditional Peruvian recording known as Panpipes and Drum Song, collected by the Casa de la Cultura in Lima. The recording lasts only 52 seconds. Yet it represents the same ancient Andean musical tradition that inspired Robles during his travels. In other words, while El Cóndor Pasa never boarded Voyager, its musical ancestors did. The very sounds that shape the song's soul are currently traveling beyond our solar system, drifting through interstellar space aboard humanity's most distant spacecraft. That may be an even more fitting tribute. Why the world still listens. More than 100 years have passed since El Cóndor Pasa first appeared on stage, yet it remains astonishingly alive. It has been translated into dozens of languages, with hundreds of distinct lyric variations written around the world. Thousands of recordings exist. Artists ranging from Waima Sumac and Placido Domingo to panpipe virtuosos and symphony orchestras have interpreted it in their own ways. The BBC ranked El Cóndor Pasa among the 50 most unforgettable songs in the world, a remarkable achievement for a melody born in the Peruvian Andes. Why? Part of the answer lies in the melody itself. Part lies in its extraordinary history. But perhaps the deepest reason is that the song speaks to a universal human longing. The miners of the original play longed for justice. Daniel Alomía Robles longed to preserve the voice of the Andes. Paul Simon longed for personal freedom. Listeners today long for their own versions of hope, dignity, meaning, and belonging. The song welcomes them all. The Eternal Flight. The condor can soar for hours without flapping its wings. It rises on invisible currents, climbing higher and higher above the mountains below. Perhaps that image explains the enduring power of El Cóndor Pasa. The song reminds us that freedom is not merely the absence of chains, it is the courage to rise above them. Born from indigenous memory, shaped by a visionary composer, transformed by folk musicians and carried around the world by Simon Garfunkel, El Cóndor Pasa has become far more than a melody. It is a journey. It is a legacy. And like the great bird that gave it its name, it continues to fly, above borders, above generations, and above time itself.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Immortal. Definition: living forever, or remembered forever because of something important. Example: Shakespeare became immortal through his famous plays. 2. Haunting. Definition: beautiful, sad, or powerful in a way that stays in your mind for a long time. Example: the haunting melody stayed in my thoughts all day. 3. Reimagined. Definition: changed or presented in a new and different way. Example: the old story was reimagined as a modern movie. 4. Affectionately. Definition: in a loving, warm, or kind way. Example: she affectionately called her grandfather Papa. 5. Rugged. Definition: rough and difficult, often used for land or mountains. Example: the hikers crossed the rugged mountain trail. 6. Indigenous. Definition: belonging to the people who lived in a place first. Example: the museum teaches visitors about indigenous cultures. 7. Continuity. Definition: the state of continuing without stopping or changing greatly. Example: the new leader promised continuity in government policies. 8. Exploitation. Definition: treating people unfairly to gain money or power from them. Example: the workers protested against exploitation by the company. 9. Fictionalized. Definition: changed to make it part of a story, not completely real. Example: the movie was based on a fictionalized version of true events. 10. Humiliation. Definition: the feeling of great shame or embarrassment. Example: he felt humiliation after being laughed at in front of the class. 11. Sovereignty. Definition: the right and power to govern yourself or your own country. In the context of the article, it refers specifically to self-determination and reclaiming control over their own ancestral lands and destiny from foreign interests. Example: the nation fought to protect its sovereignty. 12. Ethnomusicologist. Definition: a person who studies the music of different cultures and peoples. Example: the ethnomusicologist traveled to villages to record traditional songs. 13. Painstaking. Definition: done with great care, effort, and attention to detail. Example: the artist did painstaking work on the painting. 14. Without his efforts. Definition: if he had not worked hard or tried to help. Example: without his efforts, the project would have failed. 15. Urban. Definition: related to a city or town. Example: many people move to urban areas for jobs. 16. Retaining. Definition: keeping something and not losing it. Example: the school is retaining its traditional values. 17. Wistful. Definition: slightly sad because you are thinking about something you miss or want. Example, she gave a wistful smile while looking at old photographs. 18. Nostalgic. Definition, feeling happy and a little sad while remembering the past. Example, the old song made him feel nostalgic about his childhood. 19. Charangos. Definition, small stringed musical instruments from the Andes, similar to tiny guitars. Example, the musician played a charango during the folk concert. 20. Striking. Definition, very noticeable because it is unusual, beautiful, or impressive. Example, the mountain view was striking. 21. Huayno. Definition, a traditional style of music and dance from the Andes region of South America. Example, the dancers performed a lively huayno at the festival. 22. Stagnation. Definition, a situation where nothing grows, changes, or improves. Example, the business suffered years of stagnation. 23. Passivity. Definition, not taking action. Letting things happen without trying to change them. Example, his passivity prevented him from solving the problem. 24. Confinement. Definition, the condition of being kept in a limited space or not being free. Example, the animal lived in confinement for many years. 25. Intertwined. Definition, closely connected with each other. Example, their lives became intertwined after they met. 26. Amicably. Definition, in a friendly and peaceful way. Example, the two neighbors settled their disagreement amicably. 27. Drifting. Definition, moving slowly without a clear direction. Example, the boat was drifting across the lake. 28. Interstellar. Definition, located or happening between the stars. Example, scientists study interstellar space with powerful telescopes. 29. Tribute. Definition, something done or given to show respect, honor, or admiration. Example, the concert was a tribute to the famous singer. 30. Variations. Definition, different forms or versions of the same thing. Example, the restaurant offers several variations of the same dish. 31. Virtuosos. Definition, people who are extremely skilled at playing a musical instrument. Example, the virtuosos amazed the audience with their performance. 32. Longing. Definition, a strong desire for something. Example, she felt a longing to return home. 33. Flapping. Definition, moving wings up and down. Example, the bird was flapping its wings before taking off.
Comprehension questions. 1. What is El Cóndor Pasa? Answer. El Cóndor Pasa is a famous Peruvian musical work composed by Daniel Alomía Robles in 1913. It later became known around the world through many adaptations, including the Simon and Garfunkel version. 2. Why is the condor important in Andean culture? Answer. The condor is considered a sacred bird and a messenger between heaven and earth. It symbolizes strength, freedom, wisdom, and a connection to ancestors. 3. What does the Quechua word, Condor, mean? Answer. Condor is the Quechua word for condor. 4. What type of musical work was the original El Cóndor Pasa? Answer. It was a zarzuela, a Spanish-style musical play that combines drama and music. 5. Who was the villain in the original play? Answer. The villain was Mr. King, a cruel mining boss who represented foreign companies exploiting indigenous workers. 6. Who was Higinio, and what did he do? Answer. Higinio was an indigenous miner who killed the abusive manager after years of oppression and mistreatment. 7. What did the appearance of the condor symbolize in the play? Answer. The condor symbolized the spirit of the miners' ancestors and the hope of freedom, justice, and indigenous sovereignty. 8. Why is Daniel Alomía Robles considered more than just a composer? Answer. He was also an ethnomusicologist who traveled throughout the Andes, collecting and preserving traditional indigenous melodies. 9. What is a pentatonic scale? Answer. A pentatonic scale is a musical scale with 5 notes. It is common in traditional Andean music and gives the melody its distinctive sound. 10. What instruments do many people associate with El Cóndor Pasa today? Answer. Many people associate it with panpipes, quenas, Andean flutes, and charangos. 11. How did Paul Simon first discover the melody? Answer. He heard Los Incas perform it while he was in Paris in 1965, and was deeply impressed by their arrangement. 12. What contribution did Jorge Milchberg make to the song? Answer. Milchberg created the famous arrangement used by Los Incas, adding rhythmic elements and helping shape the version Paul Simon later adapted. 13. Why was there a copyright dispute involving the song? Answer. The dispute arose because the original composition by Daniel Alomía Robles was not initially credited correctly when Simon and Garfunkel recorded their version. 14. Did El Cóndor Pasa itself travel into space on the Voyager spacecraft? Answer. No. A different traditional Peruvian recording, panpipes and drum song, was included on the Voyager Golden Record, although it came from the same musical tradition that inspired El Cóndor Pasa. 15. According to the article, why has El Cóndor Pasa remained popular for more than a century? Answer. It has endured because of its beautiful melody, rich history, cultural significance, and universal themes of freedom, hope, dignity, and human longing. Discussion questions, optional. 1. Why do you think people from different cultures connect with El Cóndor Pasa? Answer. Possible answer. People connect with it because its themes of freedom and hope are universal and meaningful to people everywhere. 2. Which contribution was most important, Robles' melody, Milchberg's arrangement, or Simon's lyrics? Why? Answer. Possible answer. All three were important because each helped bring the song to a wider audience in a different way. 3. What does the condor symbolize in your own life? Answer. Possible answer. The condor may symbolize freedom, courage, perseverance, or the pursuit of dreams.